my loves. Hello.
Welcome to the Complete Woman Podcast, a show for women who have become overshadowed by all the titles they possess. I am your host, Coach Toya K, relationship and life coach. Join me and others as we take a look into the real, raw, and uncut reality of being a woman. Superwoman, get ready to take off your cape.
Hello, my loves. Hello, everyone. I am back. Your girl is back. We are here with another episode of the Complete Woman Podcast. Hi, everybody. It's been a long time. I miss it. I've been doing a lot. I've been doing some other things, been speaking and doing coaching and working my 9 to 5. And have I been on here since? I don't know. I have not. So if you have not heard, I have a new grandbaby. She is 5 months. I think she's 5 months now. She's 5 months and she is everything. I love that little girl. Like, I love that little girl as if she was my own, because she is kind of my own. She came from her mama, who came from me. So hey. So yeah, I have that going on, and other things going on in my life you will hear about soon. You know, things I got brewing, things I'm coming up on, you know, trying to work on a new book, trying to do some other things. So just keep looking out, you know. But in the meantime, I've just been trying to reacclimate, you know, and do some things since the last episode. We did my event, Toya's Girl Jam. It was amazing. Hopefully I will post a video from it here, and so you guys can see and know what to expect more than this time, what you expect if you come to a Toya's Girls Jam. It is absolutely amazing. It's absolutely great. And so this month we're going to get into, you know, this podcast. You know, I don't want to spend too much time on what I've been doing and what I got going on, you know. So this month this is Cancer Survivor Month. Did not know it was a thing, but since now I know it's a thing, if you guys don't know or who don't know, I am a cancer survivor. I have survived cervical cancer. So it has been a year that I have been in remission, and I keep having a clean bill of health every time I go to the doctor. So we praise God. Woo! God is amazing. God is awesome. God is awesome. Listen to me. So I want to spend this episode talking about my journey after cancer. A lot of people do not think about, you know, people when they are done with cancer, let me say. When people are in remission, when people have been healed or cured, people don't really think about, you know, what they could be going through, because you survived, right? You should be fine. You gone through it, right? You should be okay. You know, they gave you a clean bill of health. You should be all right. You know, that is your thinking, because when you hear survivor, you hear suffer no more. When you see someone ring the bell, you see victory. And yes, those are definitely great definitions and descriptions of surviving cancer. There is a level of relief that comes over you when you ring that bell. If anybody saw my videos from when I rang the bell the first time, because I had to do chemo and radiation. So let me scale back a little bit for the people that don't know. And you can also go back to some of my videos on YouTube, and I went through my cancer journey on there. So I was diagnosed with stage 1 cervical cancer. And so I, because of how the size of what the tumor was, the size of the tumor, and because of where it's located, they could not surgically remove it. So I had to do chemo and radiation. I had to do chemo once a week and radiation every day. So my body went through some real major changes. My mental state went through some real major changes because to do chemo and radiation at the same time and do radiation every day, it was really taxing on my body. So I was at the doctor all the time, trying to figure out what I could do to, manage some of these symptoms, some of the things that I went through. People don't really talk about, the things that you go through with, the treatment and stuff like that, because, we don't feel like you really need to know all of that, or we try to keep it to ourselves. But I tried as much as possible to share my story every chance I got about what really goes on with cancer, because a lot of us don't know. I definitely didn't know, because even though I had been around a lot of people that had cancer, I never knew, outside of having like nausea and throwing up and stuff like that, you don't really hear the real taxing stuff. So, my body went through a whole lot, and I just, my mind went through a whole lot, because at first I didn't want to do the treatment. I didn't want to do the treatment because I was fine. I went to the doctor for my regular checkup, and that's how they found it. So, I was just like, I don't want to have the treatment, because the treatment is the thing that makes everyone sick or be in pain, and I don't want that. So for me to avoid that, I am not going to do it. But I ended up doing it. So fast forward, did the chemo and radiation, and then a few months later I got the clean bill of health after finishing chemo and radiation. Got the clean bill of health. Every few months I have to do follow-up CAT scans and PET scans and all of those things for them to keep checking. And I have to do, periodically, I have to go to my oncologist, my radiation oncologist and my chemo oncologist. I have to go to both of them and see them, because my chemo oncologist, who also is my main oncologist, so she has to do my checkups and check and make sure everything is going on. Everything is going fine still. So I still have to do that on a regular basis. I did have a scare a couple of months ago. I had some bleeding after doing treatment and everything. I had some bleeding, and I have not had any kind of bleeding, any kind of no kind, like not even the normal monthly bleeding that women have. Haven't had that since I had started treatment. So to now have bleeding and pain, it freaked me all the way out. So I went to the hospital, the emergency room, and they checked me out or whatever, and they said that they didn't see, they saw some scarring, that I could have irritated or something like that. They saw some scarring, so they said that's pretty much what it was. And then when I went to my oncologist and they checked me out, they said they saw that the scarring there, so that's what happened. But in the moment of going to the hospital, and from the moment of seeing the blood, because it was a lot of blood, and going to the hospital, my mind went to this place, and it took me all the way back to when I was going through cancer, when I got the diagnosis and all of that. It took me through all of that. So the reason I tell that story is not only it to let you guys know that things still happen even after surviving, after treatment is done, but to let you know that there's a thing that happens to a lot of us that have gone through a trauma. And a trauma doesn't always have to be molestation or rape or, violent or something like that. It can be a sickness. So because I have been through cancer, I have this PTSD. I have this fear sometimes, when I see certain things or I feel certain things or whatever, I'm like, okay, I need to go to the doctor and get checked out. Like, I will go to the doctor for any little pain or anything, because at the end of the day, I want to be safe than sorry. That's what saved me the first time. That's what I'm going to continue to do. I'd rather be safe than sorry. So I always try to keep up with my doctor. So after surviving, and this was before the incident, I had already been dealing with anxiety and depression. I started to, even after, and this was again after surviving cancer, after getting the clean bill of health, after ringing the bell and everything, and all the excitement of that going on, I started to have these panic attacks, and they were so extreme to the point that I literally was one step away from wanting to take my life. And it made me understand more so, because I've been in this place before, but it made me understand from the concept of someone who has been sick or been through a trauma or something like that, um, why we want to commit suicide, why we lash out to at the people around us, because we don't know. You know, when I was having these panic attacks and hyperventilating, crying, couldn't stop crying, you know, couldn't breathe sometimes, just wanted to get away, just wanted to be alone, would literally go into a place by myself and fold up into the fetal position and just cry. I would wake up crying. I would go to sleep crying. I just always felt like someone was holding me down and I couldn't breathe. I always felt like someone was, you know, taking the life away from me. And it was very, very tough to deal with, and I still deal with it on a level, because I started going to therapy, and that helped so much. And I found out from my therapist, and he's a therapist at the cancer center that I go to. He said to me, do not feel like something is wrong with you. Oddly enough, most of my patients, this is what he's saying, most of his patients are cancer survivors because of the very thing that I said was going on with me. You think you were more so needed when you're going through the cancer and stuff like that, but he was like, you know, you're so focused on your healing, you're so focused on what you try to get better, that you don't really pay attention to your mental state. And so it doesn't really hit you until everything has died down, because now, you know, you are kind of back to being by yourself. You don't have the support system of a whole bunch of doctors and a whole bunch of people all the time, you know. So now you really got to be with your thoughts and really think about what you've been through and what you're going through. So a lot of that, plus whatever, everything else that's going on in your life and in the world, it definitely can send you in this place of depression and anxiety. So every time I hear about someone having cancer, or somebody dealing with cancer, or even somebody dealing with any illness, or someone dying of any kind of cause, it sends me into this place, and I call it, which it is, survivor's remorse, because I always have a little small amount of guilt. And at first I used to question God of why was I still here and these people were not? Why was I healed of cancer and these people were not? I really have had moments of feeling bad about that, even though I had no control over them being sick or me not being sick. Had no control over it. It's not my fault or anything, but I do have a small amount of guilt that I have to work through every time I hear about diagnosis, every time I hear about someone dying, especially if they're young, you know, especially if they're good people. Like, don't tell me that their job is done, and don't tell me God always have to take the good ones. I cannot stand that, because if God taking all the good ones, how us ones that ain't doing it right gonna get help? I don't understand. So, yeah, so I deal with that, you know, and so when I talk to my oncologist about it, because my therapist, he cannot prescribe medication because of the kind of therapist he is. So my oncologist, I told her about what was going on with me, how I literally wanted to die every day. I felt like I wanted to die. I felt like I was suffocating. And there was nothing wrong in my life. Everything was going good, but I still felt like I was suffocating. So she put me on medication, and I had to take 2 medications. I can't remember the names of them, so don't ask me. Don't look for me to tell you, because I can't remember. But she put me on 2 medications, one for the anxiety and one for the depression. And it worked miracles. When I first started taking it, I now don't have to take the one for anxiety much, but I do take the one for depression every night because it helps me sleep, because I have these panic attacks in my sleep. And when they say the mind is the devil's playground, it really is. So if you're asleep and you're not doing anything, because and that also is my life. Like, I always have to have something going on. Like, I can't go to sleep without noise, because it drowns out my thoughts, because my thoughts can send me into a place. So while I'm asleep, of course, I have no control over that kind of stuff. So I will literally almost every morning wake up in panic attacks. And that was happening before the cancer. So it amplified. And now I have a name to put on it, because, and let me help you guys, I'm a very spiritual person, very spiritual. I love the Lord. I believe in spirits. I believe in God. I believe in all that stuff. I believe in it. There is a thin line between the mental and the spiritual. So a lot of things that I used to pray heaven down about, a lot of things that I used to rebuke, and I still do, but I also have an understanding that there's another side to it. All of those things that I, suffered through, even growing up, I now know is part of anxiety. So there is an anxiety, and then there is a mental and a spiritual balance that I have to find. And I have to understand when it's mental and when it's spiritual. I have to know the differences between those and understand that. So my discernment has to be raised. And I'm always asking God to heighten my discernment, because if I don't, I'm going to miss it. I'm going to lose myself, or I'm going to do something that is not conducive to me being effective for those people that God wants me to be effective for. So I have to learn how to balance those things, because if I don't learn how to balance those things, I will always miss the mark. So you got to learn how to balance those things, and you got to know it's okay to have issues with your mental state. It's okay for your mental state not to always be on point. All the stuff that we deal with in this world, you have every right to have moments. You have every right to feel a certain way. You have every right. We just have to figure this thing out. So I have been understanding more and more my triggers and those cues of anxiety, because some of the things that I do in everyday life I didn't realize was part of anxiety or depression. And I didn't know that it was stuff that I could do to keep it from elevating. So that's why I don't have to take the one for anxiety as much as I used to, because that one was 3 times a day. So, but I don't have to take it. I don't even remember the last time I took it. And my therapist even said that, that his patients sometimes have bottles just sitting for years, because they, once they understood the things that affected and worked on it, and once the medicine has worked its way through the system, it really gives you this balance. So yeah, the medicine did what it needed to do and is doing what it needs to do. And I want to encourage you out there that, it's nothing wrong with getting help outside of God. Because I believe God is a part of everything. So, hey, if you have to go to a therapist, if you have to get medication, if you can take medication for pain or for a headache or whatever, you can take medication for your mental state. Do not feel bad about that, and don't feel embarrassed by that or shame. Don't. Because that doesn't mean that your prayer life doesn't work. Because if anybody knows, I praise heaven down and my prayers gets to God. But sometimes you have to understand that even in all that praying, there is something that God is trying to show you and teach you. And what I have learned through everything that I have been through and everything that I'm going through, it is for somebody else. When they say that, you don't like it, but it's the truth. everything it has been to help me elevate and also to help others elevate. So even though I hate going through it, I hated going through cancer, I hated going through my divorce, I hated going through teen pregnancies, I hated all this stuff. But everything that I have done and been through has helped somebody. So again, in honor of Cancer Survivor Month, keep praying for me, keep reaching out to us that have survived, and pray for all the others that have survived. Don't forget about us. Don't throw us to the side and say, oh, you're fine now, we can move on to something else. No, because there are still some things that we all deal with, and we may still need your love and care. So yeah, that has been my journey. I'm doing great. I'm doing well. My doctor's visits have minimized, like they have gone down a lot to the point that I see the doctor probably every other month now. And again, that's only because I have to have follow-ups to stay on top of, to make sure that thing don't come back. Okay. So if you want more information about cancer, or if you want more information about anything concerning that, just reach out to me, thecompletewoman19@gmail.com. Make sure you reach out. If you have something that you want to talk about when it comes to that, reach out to me. If you're a survivor and you just want to share your story, reach out to me. And as well, if you want to be on Talks with Toya to tell your story, reach out to me. Again, thecompletewoman19@gmail.com. I think that's, yeah. So, and then also, like I say, make sure you subscribe to my podcast on YouTube and on podcast platforms. Make sure you subscribe to those things, and I will continue to update you guys about what's going on with me. And let's celebrate this month. Let's celebrate those survivors around us. Let them know that you did not forget about them, okay? So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I love you all. Goodbye, my love.